I think the most important thing is clarity. And a lot of solopreneurs and entrepreneurs that I've come across, that's the first thing you have to have is to be really clear on what it is that you do, who it is that you serve, and that clarity is probably the first step that a lot of times people skip over. I'm a TikTok fanatic. I do love it because the algorithm is such that it can bring your tribe, it can bring your community right to you. It's a very clever algorithm. LinkedIn is great for networking and collaboration.
Mm.
And if you treat it that way, and I have just recently come back into the folds of LinkedIn and I'm using it in that respect, I really enjoy the connections that I'm making, the people that I'm meeting.
Hello, my love. Welcome to another episode of Blisstopia podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Castellani, and I think we're going to have so much fun with this episode today. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that we haven't really covered in the podcast so far, which is how to create a personal brand that stands out. And I brought you media expert Christine Blosdale to talk about this. Christine Blosdale is the expert authority coach. She has more than 25 years of experience helping entrepreneurs and business leaders stop playing small and start commanding serious attention, which is something that if you're literally growing your business right now, you need to get good at. She is internationally recognized. She has been a 5-time best-selling author. She has created content for global powerhouses like America Online and Microsoft, and she really knows what it takes to stand out in a crowd and stay there. So welcome, Christine, to the show. I'm super happy to
Oh,
have you, and I think we're going to have so much fun today.
thank you so much for that wonderful, warm welcome. I'm very happy to be here.
Amazing. So tell us more about your story. Tell us more about these 25 years of experience in this field.
I know I don't realize how old I am until you talk about that. No, I was very lucky to start off in media at a time when America Online was the thing. That was it. There was no other social media or anything like that. And this is a time when America Online actually had creators, writers that were in the field that they were writing about, talking about. And it was all written. It wasn't video, it wasn't any of that. And so I got a break and I started writing for America Online. And I did it through a cartoon character, though, not as Christine Blosdale, because who cares about what I think? It was done through this very campy, vampy cartoon character called Beatbox Betty. And Beatbox Betty was anatomically incorrect. She was drawn completely wrong. The tiny, tiny little waist. She always had a martini in her hand. And she was very brutally honest. So the movie reviews were exactly what I thought, or Betty. And I had lots of interviews with celebrities, movie stars, directors, went to the premieres, did all of that. And shortly after America Online, they sold to Time Warner, then all of the content was sort of created. But I was very lucky during those times when I was writing for America Online because I had to write for an audience that was 8 to 80. Now that's kind of a tough, demographic because you're like, well, kids, so what I did is I wrote it in a style that it was before Shrek, before the movie Shrek, way, way before, but it's in that style so that young people, they liked it, they got a kick out of it. And then older folks got the little, inside jokes and oh, that's so naughty. They got that vibe. And then I worked for MSN, Microsoft's version of AOL.
Mm-hmm.
MSN with the initials, with the letters, and continued and did the same thing. So I had no connection with the audience. I really didn't know what the feedback was other than winning an award, with America Online as a very listened to or watched column. But it was a time that was exciting and being in Hollywood and all of that great stuff. And then 9/11.
Mm.
And like everybody that was around then, I think we all know what we were doing or where we were when it happened. And I just remember like shaking my head and saying, is this really important what I'm doing? Does anybody really care what Angelina Jolie is wearing or who she's dating? Or I just thought it was a bit shallow. And I started digging into how America in particular treated the Middle East because I was always like, well, why do they hate us so much? And so I was on a freeway driving in Los Angeles traffic, as you always are, and channel surfing. And then I came across this radio station that was so unique. It wasn't corporate news. It was real people talking about real things and about real history. And I thought it was the most refreshing thing I've ever heard. And so I actually drove down to the radio station and I wanted to say how grateful I was for their covering all of the stuff that was happening with 9/11. And I went into the office there, into the studio, and I said, I'd like to come in and say thank you. And they were shocked because they were like, "You're not here to complain. You're not here to, you're not here to yell at us." I said, "No." I said, "I just want to say thank you," and because there was a lot of volunteers there and people that worked there, and so I got to walk around and I just said, "Thank you so much," and everybody's, "Oh, thank you. That's so nice." And then they're like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a cartoon character writing for America Online about Hollywood stuff." And they said, "Well, that's good." And I said, "It's just not hitting with me anymore." And they said, you should think about volunteering." And I said, "Oh, really? I could do that?" They said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay, well, I can write." And they said, "Well, good, because we need people that can write. We need help." And so I started volunteering there. And one thing led to another. It's that Hollywood story of the star breaks a leg and they can't go on stage. So, come on, Christine, you got to go on the mic. And I was like, "No, I'm not. I'm behind the scenes girl. I hide behind a cartoon character. I'm never ever on, the star." And they said, "Well, you have to do it because the host of the show is not here and we can't not go on the air." And so I went into that little studio all by myself, put on the headphones, pulled up to the microphone, the red light went on, and the rest is history. I fell in love. I fell in
Mm.
love with radio. I fell in love with the art of the interview. I fell in love with connecting to an audience that I couldn't see or touch, but I knew were there and they were listening. And so with that, I started my radio career and I was at that radio station for 20 years and got to do really important interviews and really amazing programming that lifted people, a bit of spirituality, a bit of public affairs, but I loved every minute of it. And then as I was thinking, as we got into podcasting, well, we got into the world of podcasting. With radio, you do a show and it goes out over the airwaves and it's gone. That's it. It could be the best interview in the world and it's gone. And
Mm.
with podcasting, there was this new thing called podcasts, and you could do a show and people could play it whenever they wanted to. They could actually pull it up and play it. And so I was hooked. And so that's when I started my own show, Out of the Box with Christine, about some 9 or 10 years ago. And
Wow.
um, and here I am today.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing this. When you were telling the story of how you ended up, going into the radio for the first time, I had like literally goosebumps all over my body. I think it's so beautiful when we can find that meaning. It seems that, this first chapter it was fun, but there was kind of like this lack of meaning, we could say.
Yeah.
And with
Yeah.
9/11, I think you had this with 9/11, many people had it with COVID. It was like these difficult times when we really see it and we really need to ask ourselves, what are we doing? Why are we doing all of this? What's the purpose behind all of this? And I think then
Yes.
it sounds like then in radio and in podcasting you found this sense of meaning and purpose.
And it's something really magical when you don't see, for so many years I was behind the mic, and I mean now I'm on video, I'm on TikToks, and I'm a coach, and I work with amazing people from all around the world. But for the longest time, I was behind the scenes, even in the studio. Nobody knew what I looked like. So there was no judgment. And I think with podcasting and with radio, the beautiful thing is if you close your eyes and you just listen to the person, you can feel them. You can feel their intention. There's no judgment on, "Oh, why did she wear that shirt today?" Or "Why is her hair so short?" Or "What's up with the nose ring?" Whatever, right? There's no judgment. They can only listen to you and feel you. And that's what I
Yes,
loved about it. It's very intimate and very
absolutely.
powerful. That's why
Absolutely.
audiobooks are so great right now too.
Yes. And I think in my case, the same. I really love podcasting because I'm really into depth. And today, with TikTok and Instagram, everything goes so fast. You have a couple of seconds, couple of minutes. how
Yes.
can you actually have a conversation? How can you actually share energy if you only have a couple of seconds? I mean, we're
Yes.
trying to do things just to catch attention, but for to me, it doesn't feel like real connection. And I think podcasting allows to that real connection. The person is maybe walking, they are cooking, they are just chilling at home and they're listening to you and they're there with you, feeling the emotions, feeling the energy, and they're giving you a lot of their time. And to me, that's really precious because that's how I
Yes.
believe we can create a bit more depth. So I'm really interested
Well,
about this conversation with you.
it's programming that we direct. So whereas back in the olden days when there was just radio and television programming, we were fed whatever the networks fed us. And now we're with social media, with TikTok and with podcasting and all those great things and YouTube, we get to dictate what we want to absorb and what we want to learn and all of that. So we have a lot more control with that, where we can say, I want to listen to Blisstopia because I don't want to miss an episode of that because I really feel good after I hear a show with Mercedes, right? So this is something that's very unique in our history where we're getting to be more in control of what we're consuming, so to speak. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I love it because then we can create a universe that is really supporting us, that makes us feel good, that is supporting us and our dreams. And as you say, we have a lot more control. So the power is on us to follow and
Yeah.
unfollow, to listen or not listen into
Yes.
certain things.
Yes.
So let's dive into personal branding, which is going to be our amazing topic
Yeah.
for today. So there's a lot of brands out there, and I'm curious about how you see things. So in your opinion, what are the pillars that a personal brand needs in order to stand out in a very crowded market, we could say?
I think the most important thing is clarity. And a lot of solopreneurs and entrepreneurs that I've come across, that's the first thing you have to have is to be really clear on what it is that you do, who it is that you serve, and that clarity is probably the first step that a lot of times people skip over. They just say, I want to be my own boss, or I want to, be able to have all these different clients and I want to be popular, whatever the reasons are. But if you're not clear on who you are and what you deliver, and most importantly, who your service, who you take care of, then that's going to be a very bumpy road for you. So that's really important with the personal branding. Also, of course, consistency. You can't just show up. It's like with your social media, you can't just do a post and then ghost it. You can't post and ghost. You need to have that consistency so that people are reminded of who you are. I find with myself that authenticity is the most important factor. The days of perfectionism, whatever perfectionism is, the days of the Kardashian, super amazing money, all of that stuff, you can see it. You see it in the headlines, you see it every single day. It's falling to the wayside and people they're not buying it anymore. And
Mm,
so that authenticity and that relatability for a personal brand, I think is key. And however authentic you are, if you're super funny, if you are an expert at a particular field and you can get that communication across, you can communicate that clearly with clarity, then
mm,
your brand has a chance to stand out. But I think as a society, we are craving that authenticity and that relatability
mm,
that some people miss the mark on, but more and more are catching on, and they're saying, you know what, that route has a good energy. I feel good about it. I'm not trying to compare myself to others, and I'm not trying to mimic somebody else's success. I'm just trying to be myself.
absolutely. And then I think it's kind of a delicate point that we need to find between being authentic, being vulnerable as well, and then sometimes like just oversharing. So
Mm.
where do you think is the actual balance between being authentic, for example, if we're going through something and it's a personal brand, so sometimes our personal life can have an impact on the brand, and oversharing, where would be, you think, the limits?
I think it's using your intuition, much like when I couldn't see the audience that I was speaking to on radio. I couldn't gauge, if they were churning the channel, if they were channel surfing, or if they were talking to somebody in the car and not listening to me. I couldn't gauge that, right? So I didn't know. But I think there is an intuition, and I work intuitively when I coach my clients. I don't market myself as an intuitive, but I use my intuition. So I'll know sort of where to go and what to say and what not to say.
Mm,
I think that's really, really important. And when you're showing vulnerability, it's not about it's not about being weak. It's about being strong. And vulnerability is a strength. It's a courage, and it's a strength that but you need to own it, right?
mm,
So you can't just be vulnerable and then be a pile, be a mess on the floor and just, sobbing, because that also makes people panic, right? Oh my gosh, what's going on with this person? But when they see you that you, oh my gosh, she's going through the same thing I am. She can understand me. We have this thing with like gurus, and we have this thing with people that are quote unquote experts. And I'm an expert authority coach, so I know all about this. But we have this thing when somebody is so high that we're afraid that they won't understand our lives. They would
mm,
never understand what it's like to feel we're worried about paying the mortgage or worried about our kids. No, when you have somebody that is on the same level, then that connection is just so much stronger. And so I encourage people to have that bit of vulnerability from time to time, but also use your intuition and also know the room,
mm.
know who the audience is. If it's a safe space for you, then you can go ahead and do it.
Absolutely. So you talk a lot about establishing authority. So how do you recommend entrepreneurs to establish authority in the early days of business and then once they're further down the line?
When you're first starting out, and I do this with a few clients that are fresh, they're brand new. They've left their jobs. They like, I want to start my own business. I want to be a coach, or I want to be an author, or I want to explore solopreneurship. And what I do is I start from the scratch, because if you don't have a solid foundation and you just go off and you start building that house, it's going to crumble. Right. So we start with the foundation. And a lot of that is finding what is it that you're so passionate about that even if you weren't paid for it, that you would love to do it. And I'm a born teacher, a coach. I love sharing tips and strategies and things that work for me and make my life easier. I love sharing that with others. I love seeing the light bulb go off on their heads. But if you start with that foundation and you look at who are you truly? I have a lovely client, and I've asked this question before. Who are you? And she'll say, "Well, I'm an author. I wrote this book." No, 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 no. What do you do for people? And she gets stuck on that sometimes and goes, "Well, but I've written this book and I'm certified in this and that." I said, "No, no, 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 no. What do you do for people?" And I had to really kind of, whittle it down. And she said, "Well, I want to help people overcome, depression and anxiety and stress and all those things." I said, "Oh, okay. So you're really helping people transform from one state to another." And she said, "Yes." I said, "Okay. Now you don't have to call yourself a transformational coach, but you are someone who does transformation. You could be a mentor. You could call yourself all kinds of different names, but what you do is not authorship. What you do is you help transform lives. So we start from that point, what it is that you're passionate about and that what
Mm,
you want to do, right? Once you have that down, then all the other stuff comes easier. And a little exercise that I do with people is I create I don't even have it with her. I create a media kit. And the media kit, even if you don't get booked on shows or you're not going to be writing columns in magazines, the media kits, it forces you to look at your low hanging fruit, your accolades, the things that you've accomplished in life, and that you can hang a coat on and you can say, "Yes, I did this. Oh, I also did this," right? And then we come up with a mini bio, a mini biography, so that if somebody's looking at it, they can go, "Well, there's a story here. This is
mm,
interesting. This is unique. This is something I'd like to have a conversation about." You can't just say, "Hey, I'm cool. Pay me to be your coach," or "Hey, I'm awesome. I want to be on your podcast." You need to explain what it is that you bring to the table and why you would be a good guest, why you'd be a good coach, What makes you different? That's all. And so we start with the basics. That's the most important thing. And then when you're more experienced and you've done it for a while, but you're kind of flatlining it, I'm like, there's a couple different things that you need to really start doing, and that is getting the word out on your business. And that could be creating a podcast yourself. Having your own podcast is a great marketing tool, as long as you don't sound too selly and pitchy, but it's a wonderful way to meet people that you want to bring into your world. You might network with other people that are your guests. You might collaborate with them. They might refer people to you. So it's a great tool. And you can also let the world know what it is that your expertise is. So podcast hosting is great, and being a guest on podcast is great as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I really resonate with that. I think for me, the podcast, I started in the really, really early days because there were some things that helped me be happier, like meditation and spirituality. And I was like, the world needs to know about this. I didn't know that then I would set up a business and all of that. It was just, I really want to talk about these topics that helped me and I want to share. And then the podcast brought me into, I mean, we're now in 74 different countries. We have listeners in 74 different countries. And I'm having like literally the best conversations, meeting amazing people like you and all the other guests that we've had. And it's such a joy. We have messages coming in the whole time. Oh, I love this podcast. And it's a really deep way to connect with people. I really, really, I really love podcasting. So
Well, and people can share the beautiful things that you do and that you cover on here. People can share it, and that's why if someone is already established as a coach or a consultant, having your own podcast, it opens up the doors in so many different ways, and then vice versa. Because if you have a podcast, you can also be a podcast guest, and that is a completely different ball game. It's so good. It's such good training for you too. It's so important. I tell my clients, we're going to try and get you on some podcast shows because you need to develop that skill set of when somebody says, "So, what is it that you do?" So, right? What is it that you do? And you need to be able to explain that in a clear, concise way so that the audience will get it. And not,
absolutely.
not just, oh, well, I went to high school back in the 80s, and then I traveled to, no.
No, thank you. Yeah, and I
Yes.
mean, it sounds like a very easy question, but giving an answer that makes sense, that captures all the nuances that you want to capture, but at the same time, it's quite concise. It's a whole exercise in and of itself. So we need to prepare these things in advance.
Yes.
So I'm curious again about your expert opinion. Which are the common mistakes that you see when people are trying to build a personal brand online?
I call it throwing spaghetti at the wall. And what they'll do is they'll just throw a bunch of stuff on the wall. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to post this. I'm going to dance around in this video, and I'm going to email every single person I know. And they do so many different things that they become overwhelmed, and nothing sticks. And so they get disheartened, and then they give up, or they say it's my lot in life. I'm not supposed to be success. Whatever those stories are, those old stories that we have, and so that's probably one of the biggest things. The other one is imposter syndrome, and a lot of people have it. Men and women have it, but I find more women than men have it, and I think that's societal, socioeconomical, how you were raised. I was very blessed. I had a mother and a grandmother, two women in my life that told me almost on the daily, you're so amazing, Christine. You can do anything. You're so smart. You're so this. You're so that. And so I didn't have any of that negative verbiage coming into my ears at a young age. I really did feel like I could do anything because of their support. But if you didn't have that, then you need to be your own, grandmother and mother, in many respects. And you need to really pay very close attention to the voices that you hear. And I don't mean, literal voices, but those little whispers that, oh, you know what, who am I to tell people how to improve their lives? Who's going to listen to me? I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too this. I'm too that. And it is the biggest killer of dreams, is that imposter syndrome. Because if you don't step into the spotlight and share your gifts with the world, those people on the receiving end, or who could be receiving your gifts, your wisdom, your skills, they're not going to receive those. And so you both lose in the end. So that's one of the biggest things. Throwing too much stuff, trying too many things, and that imposter syndrome. I think those are the two that really stop people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we've talked about some of the do's. So clarity, consistency, some of the don'ts. Try to get rid of that imposter syndrome, work on that. Might be difficult for some people. You were very lucky to have a loving grandmother, a loving mom
Yes.
that gave you amazing, beliefs from ages 0 to 7. But some people didn't have the same luck. So they might want to work on that imposter syndrome. And then you talked about throwing spaghetti at the wall. So once we're clear, we have a goal, we need to stay consistent and do kind of like the same things over and over until they work. So can you think of other do's and don'ts for building a personal brand online?
Yes, it comes with that overwhelm, I think. If you're able to, because there's different platforms that you can obviously spread the word about what you do, right? We know about the social media platforms. There's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's LinkedIn, there's, what's the other one? There's YouTube, there's all these different places, right? And TikTok, one of my favorites. I'm a TikTok fanatic. I do love it because the algorithm is such that it can bring your tribe, it can bring your community right to you. It's a very clever algorithm. But what you need to do is really also you need to find something that you're comfortable with. For the longest time, I had a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn. Every single time I made a connection, somebody would inbox me and try and sell me something, right? Or oh no, it was always that immediate pitch. And so I stayed away from LinkedIn for a very long time. But then I realized that LinkedIn is not like Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. LinkedIn is great for networking and collaboration. And if you treat it that way, and I have just recently come back into the folds of LinkedIn and I'm using it in that respect, I really enjoy the connections that I'm making, the people that I'm meeting. So you need to find something that you're comfortable in and that the platform that you feel comfortable in. I have some clients who they're scared to death. They don't want to get on video. They're like, I can't do video. I can't get on the camera. And I try and dissuade them from that. I try and say, come on, we could do this. And I hold their hands, but they might be a writer. They might be somebody who can convey messages and story and communicate really well writing as opposed to being on video. So if that's your case, then write, baby, write. One of the best things you can do for your expert authority is to have a book. And if you have a best-selling book, even better. Now, I have 5 best-selling books, but I'm not a writer. I'm a talker. So I take my talking, my speaking, I take what I say and I turn them into books because I know I'm very comfortable speaking. I'm not so comfortable writing. If I have a blank white page in front of me, I'm like a deer in headlights. So I still get the books out and establish my expert authority through those books, but I do it in a different way that I have fun, that I love, and I'm passionate about. And guess what? People will feel that in the work that you create. If it's a book, if it's a podcast, if it's a social media video, if you're happy and you're excited about it, people will feel it.
Absolutely. People feel the energy. So
Absolutely.
you've touched on social media platforms, and now I'm very interested in your opinion about this. Which ones would you say are like the ones that are key nowadays? Are there any ones where we should be in? Otherwise, we're missing out or something? Or do you think it's more like personal, in regards to what you were saying? Choose the ones where you feel comfortable or go into social media platforms with your own approach to that social media platform. From my point of view, I would maybe say Instagram, TikTok, and podcast. But what do you think?
It depends on the business. So if you're a brick and mortar, meaning if you have a pizza shop, pizza parlor, you're going to want to be more on the Facebook land, right? Because Facebook is community. Facebook is very much in this city, in this town, in this community type vibe. Whereas if you were on TikTok, it's international, baby. You're getting people from all over the world. And if somebody's watching your videos in China, but you're saying, come on down to the pizza place this Thursday, it's not going to resonate. Now, there's one exception. If you are an amazing pizza maker and you could throw the pizza in such a way where people will watch those videos over and over again just to see if you drop it. Okay? That's different. Or if Nonna, if is in the background, 80-year-old Nonna making the sauce, and she has broken English, and you can talk to Nona about, current events. That's watchable. That's something that's cool. And there's a lot of TikTok creators. There's the creator economy. They're making a really good living doing their thing. And that's the thing. Do your thing, boo. Do your thing. So if you're brick and mortar, for the most part, I would stick more to the Facebooks and Instagram. If you're someone who has an international business, like a coach or consultant, where I've got clients all around the world, so I can talk to people in Paris, in Tokyo, in, everywhere, then I tend to go to the larger platforms, and those larger platforms would be TikTok, because I love the algorithm, and my newfound friend LinkedIn. I've come back to that because it is a great place for networking, and you'll find that the content that you post on all those they're all different, right? So YouTube for the longest time too was a place for long format video. And now they're really, because they want to be in the short form video, the viral videos, they're really pushing out those shorts. So if you are creating video content for Facebook Reels or Instagram Reels or TikToks, post it on YouTube Shorts, because they're actually pushing those out. They're trying to get eyeballs on those. So that's one way you can get a little bit more noticed. And instead of just posting a video on your Facebook account, make it a reel, because that sends it out to a larger audience that you normally wouldn't. But if you're local brick and mortar, stick to the local community stuff. Join those groups, those Facebook groups that would be in your community. We all have them, the community Facebook groups where people are complaining about the potholes or whatever. They want to know about your special 2-for-1 pizza deal. But if you're someone who's international, then I would think more of the larger platforms that can reach more people.
Absolutely. And which types of content do you think work the best across different platforms, or which should be the intention behind every different platform? You talked about LinkedIn, how you've been thinking in a different angle about LinkedIn. What would you say is the recommendation, for example, for Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube?
Yes. Well, for LinkedIn, what I'm finding is, while video content does well, articles do really great but there's a little bit more sophisticated, educated audience, I think, on LinkedIn. So articles. I also encourage people to create newsletters. When you create a newsletter, that goes out to quite a few people. All your connections, they get like that little prod to sign up for, not to sign up for your newsletter, but to receive your newsletter. So it's a bit more of the written word, right? So articles, blogs, things like that. And again, if you're not a writer like myself, you can take your videos. There's a software you can get. I believe it's free to try. It's called Video to Blog, and you take your video. It could be on YouTube. It could be in a video that you actually have on your computer or your phone. You could throw it into Video to Blog, and it takes the video, and instead of being a transcript, which would be boring to read, it actually turns it into an article, to a blog, to a listicle, to a summary. And it's a great way to have copy content. So I'll do that for LinkedIn. For Instagram, it's very, very short, very, because Instagram and Facebook are owned by the same people. So you'll see a crossover. Many times if I post something on Facebook Reels, it automatically goes onto my Instagram. And it's interesting because I'll look at the two of them, and sometimes Instagram does better with the same video than Facebook, and then vice versa. Sometimes it won't do as well as on Instagram, but better on Facebook. So I tend to do more video content than written, and I post it on all platforms. So if I do a short video, I'll post it on YouTube Shorts. I'll do it on TikTok. I'll do it all across the way. TikTok is huge right now because I'll tell you this: Facebook and Instagram and YouTube have censors. They censor a lot. Okay. And
Well, now
so
they're censoring less.
well, they say they are, but it's all in the algorithm, and it's really, people did not like when there was a big push to ban TikTok. The big boys were pushing it because they were the competition. So you had this backlash where you had people that were lifelong, I mean, Facebook people and Instagram, they had accounts forever, and they they canceled them. They said, you know what you're trying to do now with TikTok, we're gonna go away from Facebook land and Instagram. And they did, by a lot. I don't know if it's millions, but a lot. So that was one thing. And there's people are turning off their television sets and they're tuning into places like TikTok because they're actually reporting from the ground. They're saying where things are. So if there's a community and the water's tainted because of some chemical plant, they're not going to hear it on the news, but they'll hear it on TikTok. So it has a different reach and it has a different value for people. So I always say, play all of the platforms, like in Vegas, play them all, play all the poker machines or whatever you're into, play them all. And then see what has a bit of traction for you and focus on that, but don't give up on the other ones because there's people on Facebook that also still need to see your content.
Absolutely. This is amazing. And now I'm super curious because now this is the landscape, right? And now there's this big, huge new component coming into the landscape, which is AI, which is
Oh,
absolutely
yes.
changing the landscape, transforming the landscape. So, what is your opinion? How will AI change the communication landscape in the next 5 years?
Well, it changes every day, doesn't it? It's shocking. I played around with ChatGPT for a while, and then I moved over to something called perplexity.ai, which I said was the sophisticated older uncle of ChatGPT. And I liked that for a while. And then I came back over to ChatGPT because I just was like kind of missing it. And I kind of went back over and it changed. And I was like, you went to college. What happened? what what happened? And now my poor perplexity, I name my, I've got Charlie for Chat GPT and Paul for perplexity. And poor Paul is like, where are you? It changes because it's changing because of everything it's getting fed, right? So all of the prompts that we're all doing, it's all in the prompt, obviously. I think there's a lot of amazing things that can happen from it. It speeds up our content creation and the workflow. I mean, it's so fast now. We can do things so quickly, but it will never replace human empathy and authenticity and that human spirit. It will never. I'm saying that now, you know, it could be like the Terminator movie. I don't know, in a couple of years. I don't think it can replace that. And my only issue is I don't want people now to use the AI to create the content. I believe in allowing it to enhance the gifts that we already have, right? The knowledge that we already have and enhancing that. It's great for coming up with ideas. If you put into it, I am a blank, 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 and I do this, this, this. What are some things I could do tomorrow to help my clients more? And it spits out something and you're like, gosh, that's good. That's really good. Yes, I can do that. And so it puts you into a path of doing something that you wouldn't have never thought of doing. That's what I love about it.
But at the same time, I think I agree with you. We can, at least for myself, I can really tell when things have been written with ChatGPT. There's like a specific writing style, even though now you can
Yes.
train it to write in your own style. We can definitely see when something has been written by ChatGPT. So I think it's
I
kind of
know.
like waters down the authenticity, it waters down the actual message that we want to convey with our own words and our own energy.
I think that a really cool aspect of it that if you speak into it and you say what it is that you're wanting it to translate, then it does a pretty good job of it if it knows you, right? If you've fed it enough, it knows your tone, and it's pretty spot on. Again, I'm not a fan of when look. I've written all these books, and I look on Amazon, and there's a book coming out every millisecond, and those books are all AI written. You know, and that's the thing, is it waters down the universe in many respects because it's not coming from real stories or real minds. It's coming from the hive mind, right? And so we have to really be careful about that. I know when I have asked AI to write something for me, and I'll just see what it comes up with. Whenever it says the world renowned Christine Blosdale, I go, that's, you know what? Come on now. That is so grandiose. Tone it down. Nobody talks like that. Nobody talks like that except for AI.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's like some words you can tell. For
Mhm.
me, in my case, in spirituality and all of that, it's like with this newfound sense of blah blah blah. I'm like, that's so AI.
Oh yeah.
Amazing. What do you think are the advantages and challenges that AI is bringing to the table for personal brands?
That reliability, because it's so fast, it's addictive, and it can be something where if I could create this super fast, then I'll just pump out, this content. I don't like seeing more and more videos of these artificial people
Mm,
speaking, and there's a lot. I mean, you can mimic somebody's voice. You can have it so that it looks like Obama is saying something, you know, horrible or weird, and it looks like him, it sounds like him, it must be him. And so that's where we get into dangerous territory too, because if they can take my voice and mimic it to the you know every single intonation that I have, and they can take that and they can put a face to it, then I don't what's real and what's not real, right?
yes, yes. And
That's the thing.
I think as a society now we're playing with the borders of that. What's real, what's fake, and we don't even know anymore
No,
what's
we
real,
don't.
what's fake.
No, we don't.
Absolutely.
It's all a guessing game at this point.
Absolutely. Yes. And then it all depends on who's controlling all of that, right? Who's controlling the social media platforms and who's controlling how we've trained AI. So we need to be also
Yes.
very, very discerning, I think, moving forward, because yeah, there's different interests behind all of these tools that we're using, whether that's social media or AI or some other thing that it's going to come out in the future. We need to be very mindful of who's behind all of this and what's their interest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And use your platforms, for as much as possible. Use it for positivity, I believe. Uplifting people, helping people. There's enough negativity and darkness in the world that we don't need to bring that to our friends and our connections. We can stay positive, and people really need it right now too. It's
Absolutely.
People are that's why they're searching out for authenticity and someone who they can relate to, because all that other stuff, it's not important. They want that connection, that human connection,
Hmm.
and that can only be done through a human.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's think into the future. Which trends do you see coming in terms of communication, social media platforms? What's the next big thing for you or big things for you?
I kind of feel that there's going to be a bit more interactivity with programming, with podcasting, and everything from where the audience has a bit of input, right? Because we're so trained with social media to get that instant, not gratification, but you post something, and like 3 minutes later you're back to see like how many likes you have and how many comments you have. And I think that the future, don't know how it's going to happen, but I think that in the future it's going to be a bit more interactive, where the people who are consuming the content will have a bit of control to help direct the narration or direct
Mm,
the direction of movies. They've already started doing that,
mm,
of even podcasts and things like that, where it's like, instead of going down this hallway and opening that door, I wonder what happens if you went down this way and opened up the blue door. What happens then? And I think that the technology is going that way, where it's going to be a bit more interactive. I don't know if that's a good thing or if that's a bad thing, but I feel like it's going to be more interactive. I also think that we are way, with everything that's happening in the United States and globally, on the global stage, I do think that there is going to be a huge movement of people coming together and putting aside their religions and their point of views and their borders, and really banding together as a human race. I really see that happening, and probably sooner rather than later. And
mm.
that's because the envelope is being pushed. It's being pushed, and people are like, okay, you can't push it anymore. We can't take that anymore. Nope, nope. And I think it'll get to a tipping point where people are just gonna go, no, you know what, we need to call it out and band together as human beings. Now, I don't know if that's because from some alien invasion or if it's the politicians losing their minds, or I don't know where that's going to come from, but I think that's going to happen. And that's why we're getting together. We're getting more communal on those social media platforms.
Absolutely. And I absolutely resonate with this. And that's also, my brand is called Blisstopia. And Blisstopia is actually a vision for the world. And it's a vision
Mm.
where that sits between utopia, the perfect place that we would like to live, but by definition it doesn't exist, and dystopia, which is the place where we're actually heading if we don't change things fast enough. So actually, Blisstopia, it's a vision that I came up with, and it's basically this: it's a world in which every person is happy, aligned with their purpose, but it's based on values like inclusion, sustainability, abundance. And in that inclusion, it's literally there's no borders, no religions, no gender, sexual orientations. We are human beings. The way I see it is we're neighbors here on planet Earth. That's what we know so far.
Yeah.
So we're neighbors here and we're literally all the same. We just have different packaging, if you will. Or maybe
Mm-hmm.
we think different things, but at the very, very core, we're absolutely the same. So the quicker we can realize all of that and the quicker we can unite and collaborate, then I think we're going to be able to pass the test that we have right now in front of us, where we're all
Yes.
part of the same thing. And nations are a concept that to me it's ancient. We should be thinking the challenges that we have now are global challenges. At a human scale, as a humanity, are we going to survive global warming? And it doesn't matter which country you were born, or or your religion, or whatever. We're all part of the same thing. So I definitely agree with you on this one, and that's the reason why I created this business and this podcast, and that's the vision behind everything that I do.
Oh, I love that. That's It's so important. And I think, who's going to lead the way? I really do. I think it has to be women. I think that has to happen. Not in a negative way where, it's going to be, no men allowed. Or, no, no, no. It's going to be women that take the lead, that says, you know what, this is not right. What we're doing to the earth, what we're doing to other people, it's just not right. And I think that women's voices are starting to be heard more, but we need to be a little bit louder, I think, on that
Yes.
issue. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And feminine leadership. It's about collaboration instead of competition. It's about how do we nurture Earth instead of just extracting from Earth, and it's more heart-led, more vulnerable, more intuitive. And feminine leadership can be done by both men and women.
Yep.
But
Yes.
I think
Yes.
we've been for centuries, we've been just too focused on masculine leadership and masculine values of work, 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 and do, do, do. And I think now we're going into something different. And there's this whole new wave of leaders at all ages, in 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, female leaders that are out there and that are just creating a different world and making different decisions. And I agree with you. I think it can come a lot from women.
Yeah. We're on it.
Just give us some time.
Yes.
Amazing. So we've talked about a little bit about your books. So tell us more about this,
Yes.
about books. What is your last book? What have you been writing about?
Well, thank you. I've got 5 of them, and the first 4 were all about podcasting. So everything about how to create a podcast, how to be a guest on podcasts, all those, how to use podcasting as a marketing tool. And for the last one, I was like, oh, I can't write another podcast book. But I looked at where my clients were and what they were struggling with, the issues that they were having. It was over resounding, social media and branding. And they were just like, I don't know what to do. What do I do on TikTok? What do I do on social media? What are the things that I can put my time in and effort in? And so I wrote this book, The Social Media and Branding Survival Guide: Digital Marketing So Irresistible Even Your Ex Will Want to Follow You. That just gives you an idea of the tone of the book.
I love the
It's
subtitle.
it's fun. It's a fun read. There's silly parts in it because that's my coaching style as well. Like I like to keep things simple, easy, and fun. And if you're able to learn in that fashion, simple, easy, and fun, and you try things and they're fun and you have some success, you'll try again, or you'll try something a little tougher. I believe that's how I learned as a kid anyway. It was a fun way to master skills. And so that book is out now, and it's not out in audiobook yet. It's not an audiobook version yet. I did do that on my last podcast book, and that was fun. Once you've written a book and you've got it out on all the different paperback and Kindle, that's great. I wanted to do an audiobook, and so I thought it was going to be too hard. And I said, Christine, you've done radio for 20 years. You're a podcaster for 10. You have a microphone and a headset. Why aren't you doing an audiobook? And I was like, duh. Oh, okay. And so I sat down, and it was a learning curve. It was because you're not reading the book, you're performing it for the audiobook. You're performing it. So I did that for Podcastonomics, and I really, really loved it. And I will tell those people out there that are authors and they want to do the easy way out, don't let AI do your voice.
Oh.
Don't throw it into an AI machine and let it read your whole book. And it's not the same. It's not the same. It doesn't know when to pause, really. It doesn't know when to take that breath, and it just doesn't. So don't do.
Absolutely. And it doesn't know the lines, that really touched you when you were writing a book, the moments when you
Yeah.
had the light bulb when you were writing the book. So that you would normally put more emphasis or the pause or the silence to come across, to send your message in the right way.
So anybody out there who has written their book and they're thinking about it, you can do it. I know you can. Just let me know if you need help. That's all.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Christine, for all of this amazing conversation. It's been really, really fun from my side. And I think the listeners will absolutely love this conversation. So where can listeners find you online in case they want to hang out with you, learn from you?
Yeah. They can find me at expertauthoritycoach.com. That's expertauthoritycoach.com. And if they want to rate their own expert authority-ness, if that's a word, like on a scale, they can actually take the expert authority quiz, and it's a scorecard, and it's 10 simple questions, and it's actually questions that you should be asking yourself anyway. It doesn't matter what business you're in. If you're an entrepreneur, coach, author, consultant, this will apply to you. And it's really, really important questions that you should be asking yourself. And at the end, you get a score, and you can see where you rate. That's available at expertauthorityquiz.com.
Amazing. So we're going to put the link to the quiz in the show notes, to your website in the show notes. And if they want to have access to the book, I think you also mentioned to us.
Yes. I'd like to gift you and your audience, if they would like, my book, The Social Media and Branding Survival Guide, with that very long subtitle, Digital Marketing So Irresistible Even Your Ex Will Want to Follow You. And I've never done this before, but I'm doing it now. I will give Mercedes a link to put in the show notes, and they can download the PDF version, which is really good because all of the links to all of the free software that I've found, the things that help, some AI tools that I use, they're in the PDF version. You can just click on the link and then you can go right to it. So that will be my gift to you and your listeners.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Christine. I know the listeners will absolutely love your book. We're going to put all of those links in the show notes. So I like to finish every episode with 3 questions, 3 rapid fire questions. So literally the first thing that comes to mind or to your intuition will be the right one. Ready?
Okay. Yes.
So when was the last time you felt bliss?
Maui with my wife on my 60th birthday, floating in the ocean. Yes, that's it. That was my last blissful moment.
So beautiful. I'm so happy for you. Can you think of one idea that fundamentally changed your life?
One idea that, you know what? I think probably I learned this like in junior high or something. The concept and the idea of working smarter, not harder. That just blew my mind. And I was like, yeah.
Absolutely. Very good one. And if you could choose one rule that everybody in the world needs to obey, what would it be?
Don't be mean. Don't be mean. Why? Yeah, that would help.
Mm,
That would help. Don't be mean. Don't be cruel.
absolutely. Yeah, that would be a better world.
I
And
think so.
and I've been asking this question for a couple of episodes now, and it's nice because I think many people are turning into this don't be mean, be kind, and many different people from different backgrounds and just very different walks of life. And I think we're all going towards the same thing. Let's just be kind. Let's just be compassionate with one another. We never know what the other person is going through. And even if they're not going through anything, let's just be kind. It's just a better way to live and to be. And this would be a much better planet if we would all be just kind to one another, respect our choices, and especially don't kill one.
That's a good one. Don't kill. Don't kill. That would be good.
Don't kill.
That's a bumper sticker right there.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Christine, for this conversation. It's been an absolute
Thank you.
joy. Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Mercedes. And keep up the great work with Blisstopia.
Amazing. I will see my listeners in the next episode. And in the meantime, in Blisstopia we trust.